Her pen was just about to touch the divorce papers when Emily saw it, a sight that made her blood freeze. Her husband's hand was resting on the swollen belly of another woman, his mistress, 6 months pregnant, standing right there in the middle of the courtroom. And her mother-in-law? She was smiling, a cruel predator's smile. Emily collapsed before she could sign her name. But here's where everything changes. When she woke up in the hospital, the doctor delivered news that would flip her entire world upside down. She was pregnant too, 7 weeks along, with the baby of the man who had just destroyed her. No home, no savings, no job. Her own mother blamed her for the failed marriage, and the wealthy Mitchell family. They were not just throwing her away with nothing. They were plotting to take her unborn child. But Emily Carter did not break. She did something no one expected. She methodically dismantled their entire empire, piece by piece, until the people who tried to destroy her had nothing left. This is a story about betrayal, revenge, and a woman who lost everything only to discover the power she had inside her all along. Stay with me for this. The twists are absolutely mind-blowing. Value statement, and by the end of this story, you will understand one powerful truth. When you stop being afraid of losing everything, you finally realize that the strength to survive was inside you the whole time. This is not just entertainment. This is a blueprint for anyone fighting a battle they think they cannot win. The Manhattan family court building stood before Emily Carter like a giant gray monument to her life's biggest failures. The cold stone walls seemed to drink in the pale February sunlight, perfectly matching the hollow ache in her chest. She pulled her dark wool coat tighter, but the shiver that ran through her had nothing to do with the chilly weather. This was the day she would sign away 6 years of her life with Ryan Mitchell, the man she had once been so sure was her other half. Emily pushed through the heavy doors, the sound of her heels clicking on the marble floors, with a false confidence that hid the storm inside her. She had been a kindergarten teacher, a job she loved, before Ryan's company became a huge success, and he talked her into quitting. He wanted her to focus on their life together, to let him be the provider. Now, at 32 years old, she was unemployed with a long gap in her work history and a prenuptial agreement that left her with almost nothing. The elevator ride to the 5th floor felt like it stretched on for an eternity. When the doors finally slid open, Emily's heart hammered in her chest. Ryan was standing by the massive windows that overlooked the city, his strong shoulders creating a silhouette against the skyline. At 38, he looked even more handsome than on their wedding day. His dark hair was styled perfectly, and his custom navy suit fit his athletic build without a flaw. He was the very picture of wealth, power, and absolute control. But he was not by himself. A gorgeous younger woman was sitting in the gallery just behind him, her hand resting on a very visible baby bump. She looked to be about 6 months pregnant, and sitting right next to her, with a protective arm around her, was Margaret Mitchell. Ryan's mother. Emily froze on the spot. She felt as if ice was spreading through her entire body. The reason listed on the divorce papers was irreconcilable differences. Ryan had never once brought up another woman. He certainly never mentioned a baby. Margaret noticed Emily and gave her a smile. It was the triumphant smile of a hunter that had successfully cornered its target. She leaned in and whispered something into the pregnant woman's ear, and they both shared a laugh. Emily's lawyer, a young and anxious associate named Kevin, nervously rustled some papers next to her. He refused to look her in the eye. She had hired a different lawyer at first, a real shark named Rebecca Torres, who had vowed to fight for her. Then, mysteriously, Rebecca had accepted a new job just 2 weeks ago. Her new job was at the very law firm that represented Ryan's corporation. It all clicked into place for Emily. Ryan had bought off her lawyer. He had left her with this young man who looked like he had just started shaving. The judge, a serious-looking woman in her 60s named Patricia Callahan, asked them to come forward. Emily felt like she was moving through thick mud, her legs like lead and her thoughts racing. The judge started to read the terms of the divorce. That is when Emily began to understand the true depth of Ryan's betrayal. He had filed for the divorce 3 months ago, claiming she was the one who abandoned their marriage. He was demanding that she move out of their penthouse apartment within 30 days. The prenuptial agreement she signed when she was 25, back when she trusted him without question, awarded her almost nothing. To make matters worse, Ryan's lawyer had presented evidence claiming Emily was emotionally unstable and neglectful. These were documents she had never seen and accusations she had never heard before. Emily tried to get to her feet, to protest, but her voice was trapped in her throat. The room began to tilt. She saw the smug look on the pregnant woman's face, the coldness in Ryan's gray eyes, and the victorious expression on Margaret's face. The pen was in her hand. The divorce decree was on the table in front of her. She started to form the first letter of her name, and that is when the whole room began to spin. The dark ink on the page seemed to blur and dance. She heard a faint ringing in her ears and felt a wave of nausea wash over her. The pen slipped from her grasp. Emily. Ryan's voice seemed to come from a great distance, a note of alarm breaking through his usual calm demeanor. She tried to answer, to tell him she was all right, but her tongue felt heavy and useless in her mouth. The entire room tilted dramatically to one side. She could see Ryan's face, closer now, his gray eyes wide, with what looked like actual panic. His hands reached out toward her. She felt herself tipping over, falling into a void. The very last thing Emily heard before the darkness took over was the sound of a woman's laugh. It was Margaret's laugh, and after that, there was only silence. She awoke to the steady beeping of hospital equipment and the sterile, sharp smell of antiseptic. A hospital. The thought formed slowly in her foggy and disoriented mind. She blinked her eyes open, adjusting to the bright fluorescent lights, struggling to piece together what had just happened. The divorce papers, the judge's chambers, the pregnant woman, the fall. Emily tried to push herself up, but a sharp pain shot through her head. A nurse with a kind face, graying hair, and gentle hands appeared at her bedside almost instantly. "Take it easy now," the nurse said softly. "You had a pretty nasty fall. You hit your head on the corner of the table on your way down. You have been unconscious for about 2 hours." 2 hours? Emily glanced around the private room. It was stark and empty, besides her and the nurse. There was no husband anxiously waiting for her to wake up. There was no concerned family member there to hold her hand. "Where's my husband?" Emily asked, even though she was not entirely sure why she cared. He was not her husband anymore, or at least he would not be, as soon as she signed those papers. The nurse's kind expression shifted to one of pity. "Your family is down the hall in the waiting room. They requested that they not be disturbed. They asked not to be disturbed." Of course they did. Just then the door opened, and a woman in a white lab coat walked in. She looked to be in her 50s, with warm brown skin and compassionate eyes behind a pair of stylish glasses. Her name tag identified her as Dr. Patricia Williams, obstetrics and gynecology. Emily's confusion grew even more. Why would an OBGYN be called for someone who just fainted? "Mrs. Mitchell," Dr. Williams started, before glancing at her chart. "Or perhaps I should call you Miss Carter. Emily is fine. she answered in a quiet voice. What happened to me? Why am I seeing an obstetrician? Dr. Williams pulled a chair up next to the hospital bed and took a seat. Her expression was calm but serious. Emily, you fainted because of a mix of things: stress, low blood pressure, and some significant hormonal changes. All of these things are perfectly normal, considering your condition. My condition? Emily's heart began to beat faster. What condition? Dr. Williams offered a warm smile. You are pregnant, Emily. Based on your hormone levels, you are about 7 weeks along. Congratulations. The doctor's words felt like a physical shock, knocking the wind out of her. Pregnant. That just did not seem possible. She and Ryan had not been intimate in months. They had officially separated 3 months ago. 7 weeks would mean it happened just before he packed his bags and left. It happened during one awful, desperate night when sadness and anger and a deep longing all crashed together. It was a night that felt like both a final goodbye and a desperate plea for him to stay. The very next morning, he had packed the rest of his things and was gone. He had a courier serve her with divorce papers before it was even lunchtime. She thought she had been careful. She never imagined that one single night could completely upend her entire life. Emily just stared at the doctor, her mouth hanging open, as she struggled to find words. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, which was still flat. But it now held a secret that was about to change everything. That is not possible, she finally managed to whisper. The timing, it just does not. Dr. Williams gave her an understanding nod. I know the timing might seem surprising, but I can promise you the test results do not lie. We ran a blood test to be certain. Your hormone levels are right where they should be for a 7-week pregnancy. Emily's mind flashed back over the last 2 months. She had been feeling exhausted lately, but she had just assumed it was because of the stress from the divorce. She had felt sick to her stomach a few times in the morning, but again, stress was the logical explanation. She had been so consumed with just getting through each day, with holding herself together, that she had completely missed the signs her own body was sending her. I just thought it was stress, Emily said in a hushed tone. That happens all the time, Dr. Williams reassured her. A lot of women do not figure out they are pregnant for several weeks, especially when they are going through major life events. But I want to assure you that both you and the baby seem to be perfectly healthy. Fainting was just your body's way of telling you that you need to slow down and start taking care of yourself. A baby, Ryan's baby. It was growing inside of her right now, in this very moment. While she was lying in a hospital bed, with the divorce papers still unsigned, another woman carrying his other child was sitting in that courtroom. Emily felt like the walls of the room were starting to close in on her. What was she going to do? The question wasn't for the doctor. She barely even meant to say it out loud. But Dr. Williams heard it. She spoke gently, saying, Right now, you don't have to decide a thing. Just rest, recover. When you're ready, we'll figure out what comes next. Then she added, But Emily, I need you to know something important. No matter what you choose, you have options. You are not alone in this. Despite the doctor's kind words, Emily had never felt so completely alone. 45 minutes after she woke up, Ryan finally showed up in her hospital room. He didn't even knock, just walked right in with a fake look of concern plastered on his face. Emily knew him too well to fall for it. He wasn't there because he was worried. He was there because his lawyer probably told him he needed to look like a caring husband. Emily, I heard you collapsed. Are you all right? His voice was monotone, like he was reading from a script. She saw him glance at his phone while he was talking to her. Emily looked closely at the man she had married, the man she had once loved. He had spent years slowly and systematically dismantling her life until she had nothing left but him. And then he threw her away anyway. I am pregnant, Ryan. The words tumbled out of her mouth before she could stop them. She hadn't planned it, hadn't thought about the right time or the right way to say it. She just needed him to know. She had to see his face when he realized exactly what he was leaving behind. Ryan's expression went through a series of changes. First came shock, his mouth falling open just a little. Then came calculation, his eyes narrowing as he worked out what this meant for him. And finally, a cold, hard resolve settled over him, his jaw tightening in that familiar way she hated. Well, that is unfortunate timing, he said. His voice was steady and all business now. Look, Emily, I will give you a bigger settlement. Let's just be reasonable here. Have the procedure and move on with your life. We can both have a fresh start. Emily just stared at him, finally seeing the real monster she had married. He never once asked if the baby was his. It never even crossed his mind that this might change everything between them. Get out, she said in a quiet voice. Emily, be sensible. This doesn't need to get messy. I am offering you an easy way out of this. Get out, Ryan sighed, like a frustrated father dealing with a difficult child. Fine, I'll have my lawyer call your lawyer, but you should really think about my offer. It's the best thing for everyone involved. He turned and left without a single look back. Emily had exactly 3 minutes of peace before the door swung open again. This time, Margaret Mitchell strode into the room. She carried a designer handbag on her arm and wore a smile that sent a chill down Emily's spine. Margaret was 65 years old but looked 10 years younger, thanks to expensive doctors and a will of iron. Her silver hair was perfectly coiffed. A string of pearls rested on her neck, and she carried herself like a queen who had never been denied anything. She had despised Emily from the day Ryan first brought her home. In her eyes, a simple kindergarten teacher was never good enough for her son. A woman with no family money or high society connections was not fit to carry the Mitchell name. I heard the news, Margaret said, sinking into the chair the doctor had been sitting in. How very convenient for you. You find out you're pregnant just as the divorce is about to be finalized. Did you really think this pathetic little trap would work? Emily remained silent. There was nothing she could say to a woman like this. Margaret leaned in closer, her eyes flashing with pure malice. My son is already giving me a grandchild, a real one. Jessica is 6 months, along with a baby boy. He will be the Mitchell family heir. Whatever you are carrying is completely irrelevant. Jessica. So that was the name of the pregnant woman she had seen in the courtroom. Emily tucked that piece of information away, not sure why it even mattered. I know you have nothing, Emily. Margaret's voice dropped to a low, conspiratorial whisper, as if they were old friends sharing a secret. You have no job, no savings, no family to bail you out. You gave up your entire life for my son, and now you have exactly what you deserve. Absolutely nothing. Emily felt the sting of tears in her eyes, but she fought them back. She refused to give this horrible woman the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Margaret pressed on, her words like daggers. If you even think about claiming that baby as Ryan's, we will drag your name through the mud. We will ruin you in court until you are penniless and broken. We will prove you are an unfit mother. We will take everything from you, including that baby if we have to. She paused, letting her threat hang in the air. Or, Margaret said, her tone suddenly becoming almost cheerful, you can sign the divorce papers, take the money, and disappear. Start over somewhere new. Pretend you never even knew my son. The choice is yours. Emily finally found her voice. Get out of my room. Margaret just smiled. Think it over, dear. You have 72 hours before the divorce is final. Make the smart choice. She stood up with practiced grace, smoothing out her skirt as if they had just been discussing the weather. Oh, and Emily? Margaret paused with her hand on the doorknob. That penthouse you've been living in? The locks were changed this morning. All your things are packed in boxes in the lobby. Security has been told not to let you inside." She left, pulling the door closed softly behind her. Emily sat motionless in the hospital bed, too stunned to even cry. In just a few hours, she had lost her husband, her home, and any hope that she could walk away from this marriage with her dignity. She was pregnant, with no home, no money, and no one to turn to. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from the building's management company confirming exactly what Margaret had said. Her key card had been deactivated. Her belongings would be kept in storage for 30 days, and after that, they would be thrown away. That's when Emily finally let herself break down and cry. 2 hours later, Dr. Williams discharged her with a list of instructions: rest, eat healthy, and find a good obstetrician. Emily found herself standing on the sidewalk in front of the building that was no longer her home. Margaret wasn't lying. Her life was packed into a stack of boxes near the service entrance. A bored security guard stood nearby, deliberately avoiding her gaze. Everything she owned in the entire world was now reduced to a dozen cardboard boxes that she couldn't move and had nowhere to take. She tried to check their joint bank account on her phone. It was frozen. Ryan had moved all the money into a private account 2 months ago. Her credit cards, all linked to his name, had been canceled. Emily's legs gave out, and she sank onto a nearby bench. The February air was cold and damp, and it seeped through her thin coat, but she barely noticed. The numbness she felt inside was far worse. She had only one option left, one person she could call. Even though the thought of it made her feel sick to her stomach, Emily dialed her mother's number. Her mom picked up on the third ring. "Emily, I wasn't expecting you to call. Is the divorce final?" Emily told her everything, about fainting at the courthouse, about being pregnant, about the locks being changed, about having absolutely nothing left. Her mother was quiet the entire time. When Emily finally finished speaking, the silence on the other end of the line was so long that she thought the call had been disconnected. "Mom, are you still there?" Her mother let out a long, heavy sigh. "Emily, you should have worked harder to keep him happy. This is what happens when wives let themselves go. Maybe if you'd given him a child sooner, none of this would have happened." Emily felt like something had just shattered inside her chest. "Mom, I am pregnant right now. I need your help." "Well, you can come home if you absolutely have to. But don't expect me to pay for your bad decisions. You made your bed, Emily. Now you have to lie in it." The line went dead. Emily sat on that cold bench, watching strangers walk past, living their normal lives while hers fell to pieces around her. She was 32 years old, pregnant and homeless, and her own mother had just blamed her for her husband's affair. She wasn't sure how much time had passed before her phone rang again. This time, the screen showed her brother's name, Luke Harrison. "Em, Diana just called me. She told me everything that happened. Where are you? Tell me where you are, and I will come get you right now. Don't you move. Luke, I can't drag you into this mess. You're not asking. I'm telling you. You're my sister, and you're in trouble. That's all there is to it. Now give me your address." 30 minutes later, an old Ford pickup truck screeched to a halt at the curb. Luke was out of the driver's seat before the engine was even off. He crossed the sidewalk in 3 long strides and wrapped Emily in a hug so tight it almost squeezed the air out of her. Luke Harrison was 40 years old, 6'2", and built like the firefighter he was. He had their dad's sandy-colored hair and their mom's stubborn chin. Right now, his face was a mask of pure, barely controlled rage. "I am going to kill him," Luke muttered into her hair. "I am going to find Ryan Mitchell, and I am going to kill him. In spite of everything, A small, watery laugh escaped Emily's lips. "You can't kill him. You'll go to prison. It might be worth it," he said. Luke pulled back to look at her, his angry expression softening. "You're coming to stay with me and Lily. And I don't want to hear any arguments about it. I know our apartment is tiny, and I burn dinner most nights. And Lily is going through a phase where she only speaks in TikTok dances. But we have a couch that's all yours, and you are our family." Fresh tears started streaming down Emily's face, but these were different. They were tears of relief, tears of gratitude. They were tears that came from the overwhelming realization that she wasn't nearly as alone as she had thought. She whispered, "Thank you?" He just shook his head. "Do not thank me yet. Wait until you have tried my cooking." Luke's apartment was tiny and overflowing with the beautiful mess of being a single dad. Toys were everywhere, dishes waited in the sink, and a fire extinguisher was mounted on the wall right next to the stove, which said a lot. But the place felt warm, and most importantly, it felt safe. Emily had never been so thankful for anything. His daughter, Lily Harrison, was 8 years old. She had her father's sandy-colored hair and a personality about 6 times bigger than her little body. The first night Emily came through the door, Lily launched into a big complicated dance that involved a whole lot of arm flailing and shimmying. When she was done, she announced, "Dad says you are having a baby and your husband is a bad word. I am not allowed to say. Can I be the baby's aunt? I am very good at being responsible. I only killed my goldfish a tiny bit." For the first time in what felt like forever, Emily truly smiled. "I would love that." Lily's face lit up. "Good. Also, Dad is a terrible cook, so you should probably figure out how to order pizza. I already have all the delivery numbers memorized." Just then, Luke walked out of the kitchen, holding a smoking pan. "Dinner is ready. I made pasta." Lily leaned over to Emily and said in a stage whisper, "It is burnt. It is always burnt." In the 2 months that followed, Emily started to carefully put the pieces of her life back together. She did not have the money to hire a lawyer, to go up against Ryan's expensive legal team, but Diana Santos helped her figure out the system anyway. Diana was Emily's best friend from college and also happened to be one of the top divorce lawyers in the city. She could not take Emily on as a client because of a conflict of interest at her firm, but she could give her advice. She could be her guide. She could show her which way to go. "You need to document everything," Diana told her during one of their secret coffee meetup. "Take screenshots, save emails, get copies of bank statements. Get your hands on anything you can before Ryan's lawyers lock you out of everything. By the time most women come to me for help, it is already too late to find what they need." Emily took that advice very seriously. She began to keep perfect records of everything, every single letter from Ryan's lawyers, every time they denied one of her requests, every piece of mail that was sent to Luke's apartment instead of the home she used to live in. She got a part-time job at a daycare in Brooklyn, putting her teaching degree to use with toddlers. The pay was not great, but it was something. It was enough to buy food and help out with the bills. She also found a community clinic that provided prenatal care with fees based on what she could afford. Dr. Williams had recommended it, and the people there were kind to her, even though she could barely pay the small amount they asked for. By the end of March, Emily had fallen into something that almost felt like a normal routine. She was 12 weeks pregnant, just beginning to show a tiny bit, and she was starting to think that maybe she could actually do this. Maybe she would survive. That is when Diana called with news that would change her entire situation. I found something." Diana's voice was electric with excitement. "Ryan's company is under investigation for some tax problems, and you are not going to believe what the accountant who went through their books discovered. Emily squeezed the phone, her knuckles turning white. What? Hidden bank accounts, several of them offshore in the Cayman Islands. And there is one account that has your name on it, one you never even knew about. It contains $200,000. Emily's knees buckled, and she collapsed onto Luke's couch. That is impossible. I would have known if there was an account in my name. That is the whole point. Ryan hid it from you. He was hiding money from the IRS, and he was hiding it from you. If this information comes out during the divorce case, your prenup could be thrown out. Fraud is one of the very few things that can make a prenuptial agreement invalid. Emily's heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. What do I need to do? There is a hearing in 2 weeks. If you testify that you had no knowledge of this account, Ryan could be in very serious trouble. We are talking about tax fraud and hiding assets during a divorce. The judge is not going to be happy about that at all. Diana paused for a moment, and Emily could sense the warning in her tone. But you have to understand what this will mean. If you get on that stand and testify, you are officially declaring war. Ryan and his mother, Margaret, are not just going to let this happen. Are you ready for that kind of fight? Emily thought about the last 3 months, the shame, the absolute cruelty of it all, being thrown out of her own house while she was pregnant, having her own mother blame her for everything, being forced to sleep on her brother's couch while Ryan was living in a penthouse with his mistress, who was also pregnant. I am ready. The hearing was on a Tuesday morning in early April. Emily entered the courthouse in the most professional-looking outfit she had, a simple navy dress that Diana had helped her choose. Her baby bump was noticeable now, a small curve that she found herself instinctively touching whenever she felt a wave of anxiety. Ryan was already inside, surrounded by his team of lawyers. He looked shocked to see her there, and he looked even more shocked when she was called to the witness stand. Emily's testimony was clear and steady. She explained that she had never known anything about the offshore accounts. She presented documents that proved Ryan had been in complete control of their money throughout their entire marriage. She answered every single one of the judge's questions with a quiet sense of dignity. Ryan's attorney tried to make her look bad, implying that she must have known about the money and was just playing dumb to get sympathy, but Emily did not back down. I trusted my husband, she said, looking straight at Ryan for the very first time. He told me he was handling our finances. I believed him. That was my mistake. The judge ruled in Emily's favor. The prenuptial agreement was declared void because Ryan had fraudulently hidden assets. Emily was awarded 40% of their shared property, which included the money hidden offshore. The court also ordered Ryan to pay her back spousal support and cover all of her legal expenses. Emily walked out of that courthouse feeling like she could finally take a full breath. Diana was waiting for her on the steps, a huge grin on her face. You did it. You actually did it. No, we did it. I could not have done any of this without you. That evening, Luke made his famously burnt pasta to celebrate. Lily performed a victory dance that she had clearly been working on for days. For the first time since that horrible morning in the courthouse, Emily felt a sense of hope. That feeling lasted for exactly 6 hours. At 11 o'clock that night, there was a knock at Luke's door. He opened it to see 2 people dressed in business clothes, holding clipboards. Mr. Harrison, we are from Child Protective Services. We have received a report alleging child endangerment concerning your daughter, Lily. We need to inspect your home and speak with the child. All the color drained from Luke's face. What? That is ridiculous. Who made this report? The report was filed anonymously, sir, but we are legally required to investigate every claim. May we please come inside? Emily could only watch in horror As the investigators from Child Protective Services moved through Luke's small apartment, writing notes about everything they saw, the tight living space. The toys scattered on the floor, the smoke marks on the wall near the kitchen stove. They took Lily into her bedroom to interview her while Emily and Luke sat in the living room, completely stunned. "This is them," Luke said, his voice trembling with fury. "This is Ryan and his mother. They are getting back at you because you won in court." Emily felt a wave of nausea. She knew they would not give up easily, but she had never imagined that they would stoop so low as to go after Luke, to go after little Lily. Diana called the very next morning and confirmed their worst fears. The report to Child Protective Services had been made by Margaret Mitchell's personal assistant. All the evidence was completely fabricated. They had used pictures of Lily at a playground and twisted them to make it look like she was being neglected. They had even invented a concerned neighbor who did not exist. But the harm had already been done. Ryan's lawyers immediately used the Child Protective Services investigation as a reason to appeal the judge's divorce ruling. They argued that Emily was emotionally unstable, that she spent her time with unfit family members, and that her ability to make good decisions was questionable. They filed a legal motion to establish that Ryan was the father and to demand full custody of Emily's unborn child, and they successfully had the settlement money frozen until the appeal process was finished. In a single night, Emily had lost everything she had just gained, and now they were trying to take her baby away from her. The investigation by Child Protective Services took 6 long weeks to complete. 6 weeks of endless interviews, home inspections, and social workers asking Lily tricky questions designed to confuse her. In the end, Luke was completely cleared of any wrongdoing. The report was officially ruled as unfounded. But the investigation had caused other damage. Out of nowhere, Luke's ex-wife, Melissa, decided to reappear after abandoning him and Lily 3 years earlier. She armed herself with a CPS case, claiming it was proof Luke was an unfit parent and demanding a new custody hearing. He was suddenly in a battle for his own daughter, simply because he had opened his home to Emily. One evening, as Emily apologized over and over, Luke stopped her. "Em, this is not on you," he said. "I would do the same thing again in a second. But we have to be smart. For Lily. If Melissa's lawyers find out you are living here, they will use it to destroy me in court." Emily knew he was right. She despised the situation, but she understood. So, at 5 months pregnant, Emily walked into a women's shelter in Queens. The place, called Safe Haven, was a former church now used as temporary housing for women fleeing difficult lives. The setup was basic: dorm-style rooms with 4 beds each, communal bathrooms, and a shared kitchen. It was a humbling reality, and it was opening her eyes. Emily never imagined herself as the kind of person who would need a shelter. She had a college education. She was once married to a millionaire. Her home had been a penthouse with a sweeping view of Central Park. Now she was sleeping on a tiny cot, with her entire life packed into a single suitcase stashed underneath. The women she met at Safe Haven were from every walk of life. There was Rosa Martinez, a 45-year-old woman who, after 20 years, finally left her abusive husband and was now working 2 jobs to afford her own apartment. And there was Keisha Robinson, 29, a mother of 2 who had escaped a violent partner and was starting completely from scratch. They were not victims. They were survivors, every single one of them. And bit by bit, Emily started to see herself as one of them. "Hold on, girl," Rosa said one night after Emily shared the short version of her ordeal. "You're telling me you had a penthouse with a view and you left?" "I did not leave," Emily clarified. "I was thrown out while pregnant." Rosa nodded with a look of deep understanding. "Men are garbage. No offense to your baby's father." Full offense, Emily shot back. He deserves it. Rosa let out a big, warm laugh that made Emily smile, in spite of everything. I like you. You've got a fire in you. I can see it. That fire felt awfully faint most of the time, but Emily was trying to keep it lit. Her situation got worse when she had lost her job at the daycare. Someone, and she had a very good idea who, sent an anonymous tip to her employer. It detailed the custody case, the CPS investigation, and the fact that she was residing in a shelter. Her manager had gently explained that they could not have that kind of instability around the children. Emily understood the reasoning, but the injustice of it was crushing. She was being punished for things that were done to her. But the world wasn't concerned with what was fair. It was only concerned with how things looked. So now her days were spent at the shelter, helping in the kitchen, taking small jobs for pocket money, and trying to figure out what to do next. The court date was getting closer, and Diana was preparing her case for free, but the odds were not looking good. Ryan possessed all the power. He had endless money. He had a team of lawyers. He had his mother, who appeared willing to go to any length to completely demolish Emily. All Emily had was a growing baby bump and an ironclad refusal to surrender. At her prenatal visit that week, Dr. Williams looked worried as she read Emily's blood pressure. "It is too high," the doctor said. "Emily, the amount of stress you are under is affecting the baby. I need you on bed rest." "I live in a shelter," Emily stated plainly. "Bed rest is not really possible." Dr. Williams sighed. "I understand, but I need you to take this seriously. If your blood pressure keeps rising, you are at risk for going into labor early. You could get preeclampsia, which is dangerous for both of you. You have to find a way to lower your stress, or my only option will be to hospitalize you." Emily nodded, but they both knew the request was impossible. She could not just decide to be less stressed when her entire life was a war zone. That night, lying on her cot in the shelter, Emily felt the baby kick for the very first time. It was a tiny, subtle movement like the flutter of a butterfly's wings, deep inside her. But it was unmistakable. Her baby was real. This little life was growing inside her, depending entirely on Emily for protection. The realization brought her to tears. From the next cot, Rosa's voice cut through the darkness. "Hey, are you okay?" "I felt the baby kick," Emily whispered, "and I just realized what a terrible failure I am. I have nothing to offer her, no home, no job, and no money. Her father is trying to take her from me before she's even here. What kind of mother brings a child into a disaster like this?" Rosa was silent for a few seconds. Then her cot creaked as she got up and walked over to Emily's, sitting on the edge of the mattress. "Let me tell you what my grandmother always said. When the devil keeps chasing you, it means you are carrying something he wants. Your baby is worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. And crying on a shelter bed is not giving up. It is being human. You get your rest tonight. Tomorrow, we go to war." Emily looked at this woman, a stranger just a few weeks ago who had become an ally, and felt a fundamental shift inside her. Maybe she was not as isolated as she felt. Maybe some people were worthy of her trust. "Tomorrow," Emily agreed, her voice firm. "Tomorrow, we go to war." A week after that conversation, a package for Emily showed up at the shelter. The return address was missing. Her name was on a plain white label. Inside were 3 things: a disposable phone, still in its original packaging, a USB drive, and a short handwritten note. "Everything you need. Use it wisely. A friend." Emily stared at the package for what felt like an eternity, her mind racing. Who knew she was here? Who would send her evidence? And what was it evidence of? She immediately called Diana. "Do not plug that USB into anything with an internet connection," Diana warned her. "It could be a trick. Ryan's lawyers might be trying to frame you. Bring it straight to me. I have someone who can check it safely." Diana's someone was a forensic tech specialist named Marcus, who worked from a small office in Brooklyn. He examined the USB drive on a secure, isolated system, scanning it for any viruses or tracking software. "It is clean," he announced after an hour of work, "and you are not going to believe the files on here." The contents of the USB drive were devastatingly powerful. There were audio recordings of Ryan and Margaret planning how to ruin Emily. "We need to break her," Margaret's voice said, crisp and clear. "Make her so exhausted she cannot fight back. By the time this baby is born, she should have nothing left." There was proof that Jessica Vale, Ryan's mistress, knew about Emily from the very start. She had actively helped Ryan destroy the marriage, encouraging his long work hours and suggesting ways to cut Emily off from her friends. There were financial statements that showed Ryan had been hiding money in offshore accounts for years, far more than the $200,000 they had initially found. The actual total was closer to $4 million. And the most damaging evidence of all was a set of medical records. They showed that Jessica's pregnancy had serious complications, and Ryan had been pressuring her to hide this from his family, afraid it would make her less valuable as the one producing his heir. "This is incredible," Diana whispered. "This changes absolutely everything. But we have to be extremely careful. Some of this information was clearly obtained illegally. We cannot use it directly in court." Emily nodded, understanding the gravity. "But we can use it to know where to look." "Exactly," Diana confirmed. "We subpoena the correct records, we depose the correct people, and then this information will surface through legal channels. Whoever sent this just handed us a roadmap." The question still lingered. Who was the sender? Emily had a guess, but it seemed impossible. The only person with access to all this information had to be someone in Ryan's most trusted circle, someone who had turned on him. For the next 2 months, Diana worked on Emily's case as if it were the most important one of her career. For Emily, it was. They filed one motion after another, forcing Ryan's legal team to respond to discovery requests and hand over documents. Slowly but surely, the evidence from the USB drive was officially verified. The offshore accounts were real. The conversations had happened. The conspiracy to file false CPS reports was exposed. Ryan's legal team went into overdrive. They made every attempt to get the case records hidden from the public. They lodged official complaints about Diana's methods. At every turn, they asked for more time and pushed for postponements. But the facts were slowly coming to light, and there was absolutely no way they could prevent it. The big custody hearing was set for August, which was when Emily would be 7 months pregnant. This was the final showdown. She would either leave with her child's future safe and sound, or Ryan and his mother would strip her of everything. Emily braced herself for an all-out battle. She went to live with Luke again, since his own custody issues with Melissa had just been settled, and he had won. The Child Protective Services case against him had been so completely disproven that Melissa's own attorney told her to abandon the fight. "I told you," Luke said gently, when Emily tried to say sorry one more time. "This is what family does. We have each other's backs. Now quit apologizing and help me figure out what to make for dinner that won't end up a charred mess." In the end, they just decided to get a pizza delivered. On the eve of the court date, sleep was impossible for Emily. She found herself sitting in Luke's quiet living room, resting a hand on her stomach, feeling the little kicks and flutters of her daughter. Her lawyer, Diana, had walked her through her statement over and over. Emily knew the words to use, the way to carry herself, and the kind of questions she would face. Still, no amount of practice could truly get her ready to see Ryan's face again. To look at the man who had worked so hard to ruin her, knowing she was on the verge of doing the same to him. Her phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from a number she did not recognize. "You will win tomorrow, but this is not the end. Prepare for what happens after. A friend." Emily just looked at the screen, her mind racing. Her secret supporter was still out there, looking out for her from a distance. But who was this person? And what could they possibly mean by what happens after? It turned out she would not have to wait long to get her answers. The hearing was held in the very same courthouse where she had collapsed months before. This time, Emily strode through the entrance with confidence, her shoulders back and her pregnant belly clearly defined under a tasteful navy blue dress. Diana was right by her side, clutching a briefcase packed with proof. Ryan was waiting for them, surrounded by a team of 3 attorneys and a public relations specialist. His mother, Margaret, was seated in the audience behind him, and she seemed to have aged, looking frail and worn. Interestingly, Jessica was nowhere to be seen. The proceedings went on for 4 long hours. Emily took the stand and spoke about her life with Ryan. She detailed how he slowly cut her off from everyone she knew. She explained how he managed every cent of their money, making her totally reliant on him. She revealed the 2-year affair he had while pretending to be a faithful husband. Finally, she described the calculated campaign of cruelty he and Margaret had launched to shatter her spirit. Her delivery was steady. Her words were clear. The impact was shattering. Diana then laid out the case, piece by piece. She produced financial documents that exposed years of secret accounts. She played recordings of phone conversations where Ryan and Margaret plotted Emily's ruin. She even had a sworn statement from Ryan's old assistant, who verified that the entire Child Protective Services complaint was a lie. When it was all over, the judge herself seemed appalled. "Mr. Mitchell," Judge Callahan began, her tone frigid, "in my 20 years as a judge, I have seldom encountered such a malicious and methodical campaign of abuse against a partner. Your actions are beyond disgraceful." The final decision was a complete victory for Emily. She was granted sole custody of her child. Ryan was allowed visits only under supervision, and only after he finished parenting courses and underwent a psychological exam. The court awarded Emily 60% of their shared property, which specifically included the secret offshore accounts. Ryan was ordered to start making child support payments right away. To top it all off, a protective order was put in place against Margaret Mitchell, legally forbidding her from getting within 500 feet of Emily or trying to communicate with her in any way. Emily was victorious. She stepped out of the courthouse and into the bright August sun with Luke, Diana, and Rosa right there with her. Rosa had even skipped a day of work to offer her support. They were all shouting with joy and embracing one another. For a single flawless moment, Emily let herself think that the long ordeal was truly finished. That feeling of peace held on until the evening. She was back at Luke's place, finally letting her guard down after so many months, when the first pangs of pain began. Initially, she dismissed it as a physical reaction to the stress finally melting away. But the cramping grew more intense, and the waves of pain came one after another with less time in between. "Luke," Emily choked out, bending over in agony. "Something is not right." The trip in the ambulance was a dizzying whirlwind. All Emily could recall were flashing lights, panicked voices, and her own hand squeezing Luke's with enough force to shatter bone. She could remember the icy total terror of knowing she might be on the verge of losing the very thing she had just won. Dr. Williams was waiting for them at the emergency room doors, her expression serious. Emily, you are experiencing premature labor, she said directly. The amount of stress you have been under was more than your system could handle. We are trying absolutely everything to halt the labor, but you need to brace yourself. If this baby is born today, at just 32 weeks, we are looking at significant health issues. Can you make it stop? Emily pleaded. Please, my baby has to be all right. Dr. Williams gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. We are going to do our best. For the next 6 hours, they did just that. They attempted every possible medical procedure and administered every known drug. Dr. Williams and her staff fought tirelessly all night long. Meanwhile, Emily found herself bargaining with a higher power she was not even certain existed, offering up desperate vows she had no idea how to fulfill. But some events are simply inevitable. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Emily's water broke. Ready or not, the baby was on its way. The birth itself was a swift and frightening ordeal. Emily pushed on command and cried out when the pain overwhelmed her. She could hear the frantic beeping of medical equipment and the sharp, urgent commands of the doctors. Through the entire chaotic scene, she locked her gaze on Dr. Williams, using the doctor's calm face as her anchor. Then, out of nowhere, a new sound cut through the noise. A cry. It was small but fierce, and to Emily, it was the most magnificent sound in the world. It is a girl, Dr. Williams declared, a smile breaking through her focused expression despite the turmoil. She is tiny, but she is breathing all by herself. Emily, you have a baby girl. The nurses laid the baby on Emily's chest for a mere 30 seconds before she was rushed to the neonatal intensive care unit. In that brief window of time, Emily took in every detail. The unbelievably tiny fingers, the wrinkled little face, the fine, dark strands of hair. This was her daughter. This was her hope. She named her hope Grace Carter, because in the end, hope was the only thing Emily had, and against all odds, it had seen her through. The following days passed in a haze of fear and utter exhaustion. Hope was in an incubator, surrounded by wires and tubes, in a battle to gain strength. Emily was by her side for every possible minute, speaking softly, humming songs, and vowing that she would make everything all right. That is when Ryan's attorney showed up holding a new set of legal documents. Mr. Mitchell is formally challenging the court's custody decision, the woman stated, her tone devoid of any emotion. His position is that the early delivery serves as proof that Miss Carter is incapable of offering a stable home, thus making her an unfit parent. He is petitioning for an immediate transfer of custody as soon as the infant is discharged from the hospital. Emily looked down at the documents, completely stunned. Her baby girl was in a fight for survival in intensive care, and Ryan was already trying to rip her away. A critical part of Emily's spirit just broke. An hour later, Rosa discovered her in the quiet hospital chapel, crying so violently she could hardly draw a breath. "They will never quit," Emily managed to say, between sobs. "It does not matter what I do, they will just never quit. I really believed I had won. I thought this was all behind me, but they will not ever let me go." Rosa took a seat next to her, remaining silent for a while. When she did speak, her tone was soft, yet unwavering. "Do you recall what I said back at the women's shelter? The devil only keeps knocking when he knows you have something he desires. That little girl is worth the fight. You are worth the fight. And I can see that you are exhausted. I can see you feel shattered. But this is not over. Get some rest now. Tomorrow, we are going to find a way to finish this, once and for all." Emily gazed at the woman who was truly her sister in all the ways that counted. But how? Rosa just smiled. I believe is time for you to finally meet your secret ally. 3 days after Hope's birth, Diana got a text. It came from the very same unknown contact that had provided the flash drive. The message proposed a meeting, gave an address in the Midtown area, and made a single, bold promise. This would change the entire situation. Against Emily's strong objections, Diana decided to go by herself. If it turned out to be a setup, she was determined to keep Emily far away from the danger. The rendezvous point was a coffee house. Nice, but not flashy. Diana got there ahead of schedule and picked a table that gave her an unobstructed line of sight to the front door. She bought a cup of coffee she had no plans to drink and began her wait. When a woman entered the coffee shop 10 minutes later, Diana actually sputtered on the coffee she had not even sipped. It was Jessica Vale. She was Ryan's other woman, the one carrying his other child. She was the same person Diana had seen in the courtroom, smirking and resting a hand on her own pregnant stomach, while Emily's life was torn apart. "Before you get started," Jessica said quickly as she slipped into the chair opposite Diana, "I already know what you are thinking about me, and you are not wrong, but I am asking you to please just listen to what I have to say." Diana took a deep breath and centered herself. "You have got 5 minutes. That is it." Jessica then began to explain everything, the words spilling out of her. "I was only 22 years old when I went to work for Ryan's company. I was young, so naive, and completely captivated by the attention from a man with so much wealth and power. He was the one who pursued me. He swore to me that his marriage was finished, that he and Emily were already separated, and that the divorce was nothing more than paperwork. By the time I discovered he was lying," Jessica confessed, her voice shaking, "I was already pregnant. I was completely trapped. Margaret made it perfectly clear what would happen to me if I even thought about leaving. She promised to ruin me, just like she was ruining Emily. I would lose absolutely everything, my son included. So you went along with them," Diana stated without emotion. "You helped them destroy an innocent woman." "Yes." Jessica looked directly into Diana's eyes. "I helped them. I did it because I was terrified. I did it because I was selfish. I told myself that Emily must have done something to deserve it. But I was so wrong. And now, I'm watching Ryan do the very same thing to me that he did to her." "What are you talking about? He is never at home. He can barely stand to look at our son. Margaret treats me like I am just a vessel for her grandchild, not her daughter-in-law." Then, last month, I heard Ryan and Margaret talking about how they would deal with me when I was no longer of any use to them. They used the exact same words they used for Emily. Jessica leaned in, her face etched with desperation. "I am not looking for your forgiveness. I know I do not deserve it. But I have information. I have information that could put an end to all of this. And I am ready to testify." "What kind of information?" "Ryan has a history of doing this. Emily was not the first person he victimized. There was another woman before her, about 15 years ago. Her name is Sarah Bennett. She also had Ryan's child, a baby girl, and Margaret paid her a fortune to vanish." Diana felt her own pulse begin to race. "Keep going." "Sarah had to sign a strict non-disclosure agreement. She accepted the money and relocated to Seattle. But I managed to find her contact details inside Margaret's private files. She has been watching everything from a distance for all these years, just waiting for someone to finally bring the Mitchells to justice." Jessica took a folder out of her bag and pushed it across the table toward Diana. "And there is something else. The seed money that started Ryan's company, it did not come from Margaret's family inheritance, like the public believes. It was actually embezzled from his father's business associate, a man by the name of William Crawford. Margaret helped him conceal the crime 15 years back. Crawford passed away without ever learning what they had done to him, but I am certain his family would be very interested in hearing the truth. Diana opened the folder. It contained a trove of financial statements, legal papers, and contact information for both Sarah Bennett and the Crawford family. There were also detailed notes documenting every single crime the Mitchells had committed for the last 2 decades. "This is so much bigger than a custody case," Diana said, almost in a whisper. "This is fraud, conspiracy. This could even be a RICO case." "I know," Jessica confirmed, "and I am prepared to help you prove every last bit of it. I will do whatever it takes to tear them down." Diana stared at the woman before her, an old adversary, now offering to be her greatest ally. The bitter irony of the situation was not lost on her. "Why are you really doing this?" Jessica paused for a long moment before answering. "Because my son should have a better father than Ryan is capable of being. Because Emily should have been treated better than how we treated her. And honestly, because I am just so tired of living in fear." She got up to go, but then stopped. "Please tell Emily something for me. Tell her that I am so sorry. I know that is not enough. I know it will never be enough. But I need her to know that I understand what I did, and that I am trying to fix it." With that, she left the coffee shop and did not look back. Diana remained seated for a long time, just looking at the folder in her hands. Then she took out her phone and dialed Emily. "Em, you are not going to believe what just happened." Emily listened as Diana recounted the meeting, a powerful feeling of disbelief washing over her. Jessica Vale. The very woman she had despised for months, the woman who played a part in wrecking her marriage, was now offering her the key to destroying Ryan. It had to be a setup. It sounded far too good to be true. But when Diana revealed the folder's contents, and Emily saw Sarah Bennett's name, the financial statements, and the true extent of the Mitchells' crimes, she knew it was real. This was the weapon they had desperately needed. Diana laid out their choices very clearly. "We can hand this over to the district attorney. We are talking about criminal charges, federal inquiries. Ryan and Margaret could face prison time, but that path means making everything public. Your name will be all over the news. Hope's birth will be intensely scrutinized. It will be a long and vicious battle." Emily gazed through the window of her hospital room, looking toward the neonatal intensive care unit where her daughter was getting stronger with each passing day. Hope had been in the hospital for 2 weeks already. She was no longer on a breathing tube. She was gaining weight. The doctors were saying she might be able to come home soon. "They tried to strip me of everything," Emily said, her voice slow and measured. "My house, my money, my self-respect, my own daughter. And they are not finished. Even right now, with Hope in this hospital fighting just to live, they are still trying to take her from me." She turned and met Diana's gaze. "If I fail to stop them, they will just do this to another woman, to Jessica, to Sarah Bennett, to whoever comes next. They are never going to stop unless somebody makes them stop." Diana gave a firm nod. "I was really hoping you would say that." Emily felt a new sense of purpose settle deep inside her. A calm certainty. A firm resolve. "Call Sarah Bennett. Call the Crawford family. Call anyone else you think we need. We are going to burn their entire world to the ground." It took 3 months to put the case together. Hope was able to come home from the hospital after 4 weeks. She was tiny but perfectly healthy, with her mother's deep brown eyes and her father's determined chin. Emily found a small apartment with Diana's help, paid for with the few assets Ryan's team of lawyers had been unable to freeze. It was not a lot. Just 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and windows that faced a brick wall. But it was all hers. During the daytime, Emily devoted herself to caring for her baby girl. At night, once Hope was sound asleep, she and Diana worked tirelessly to construct the case that would finally bring down the Mitchell family. Their alliance was built one piece at a time. Diana was the master of legal strategy, liaising with prosecutors and filing motions to force discovery. Jessica became their inside source, risking absolutely everything to copy documents and record incriminating conversations. Sarah Bennett ended her 15-year silence and agreed to testify about what they had done to her. It turned out she had a daughter as well, Ryan's firstborn child, a 13-year-old girl named Madison, who had spent her life knowing her father was a very rich man who wanted absolutely nothing to do with her. Rosa rallied support from the Women's Shelter Network, putting Emily in touch with other women who had escaped wealthy and abusive partners and could offer their wisdom. Luke offered practical assistance and some much-needed humor. His skills in the kitchen had not improved, but his taste in takeout restaurants had gotten much better. And then there was Michael Brooks, an investigative reporter Diana had known for many years. He had been attempting to expose the Mitchell family for a decade, but was always blocked by their walls of money and legal intimidation. Now, at long last, he had the proof he needed. Their strategy was a coordinated assault from every possible angle. They would expose the finances through expert accountants who could trace every single hidden dollar. They would apply media pressure through Michael's in-depth investigative article, timed to be released the exact moment the legal battle started. They would launch a legal attack with a series of civil and criminal motions, filed one right after the other. And they would present powerful witness testimony from Emily, Jessica, and Sarah, which would establish a clear pattern of abuse that stretched back for 2 decades. On a chilly November evening, the main group met at Luke's apartment to go over the final plans before unleashing the storm. "Okay, let me make sure I have this right," Rosa said, reviewing the strategy while eating a slice of pizza. "So, we have the wife, the mistress, and the other wife all teaming up to bring down the one guy who wronged all of them. This is basically a Netflix documentary, but with much better food." Luke laughed from the kitchen, where he was trying to brew coffee. "I offered to make something more special, but Lily says my coffee tastes like burnt sadness." She is not wrong about that. Emily glanced around the room at the improbable family she had brought together. A year ago, she had felt completely alone. She was terrified, and she was sure she was about to lose everything she had. But now she was surrounded by people who were ready to fight for her. And she was ready to fight right alongside them. "No matter what happens tomorrow," Emily said, "I just need all of you to know how much this means to me. I never could have done any of this by myself." "That is the whole point," Diana answered. "None of us should ever have to do these things alone. That is the secret to how people like Ryan always win. They make their victims feel isolated until there is no one left to stand up to them." "Well," Jessica added quietly, "this time there is." Michael Brooks' article went live on a Tuesday morning. Mitchell Development, an empire built on lies. A deep dive into the real estate giant founded on fraud, secret children, and the women it destroyed. The story laid out every single detail. It covered Ryan's history of affairs and the families he abandoned. It exposed Margaret's role as the family enforcer, the one who cleaned up every scandal and ruined anyone who posed a threat to their public image. The article revealed the embezzlement that had provided the company's initial funding. It detailed the systematic harassment of any woman who dared not to remain silent. By lunchtime, the hashtag Mitchell Exposed was trending across the country. By that evening, other women had begun to share their own stories. By the next morning, the stock for Mitchell Development had plunged by 30%, and the company's board of directors had scheduled an emergency meeting. Ryan scrambled to fight back. He appeared on television, calling the article a smear campaign organized by his vengeful ex-wife. He threatened to sue Michael, the news publication, and Emily herself, but the proof against him was simply overwhelming, and it was absolutely everywhere. Margaret appeared on television, defending her son with chilling calm. She called Emily Carter a troubled woman, unable to handle a failed marriage. She accused Emily of manipulating others into telling lies about her family, calling every claim a complete lie. That very night, the network reached out to Diana. They needed Emily to give her side of the story. Live on the air. Tonight. Emily gazed down at her daughter, Hope, who was sleeping soundly in her crib. She was just 5 months old, a picture of health and happiness. She had no idea her mother was preparing for a public battle on national television. I am ready, Emily stated simply. A mere 2 hours later, she was on camera, dressed in an unassuming blue dress, with a folder of papers in her hands. The host, a seasoned journalist named Catherine Wells, asked for her reaction to Margaret's accusations. Emily's expression remained steady. When I first met Ryan Mitchell, I was teaching kindergarten. I left my job because he assured me he would provide for me. I put my trust in him. But when he decided he was finished with me, he and his mother attempted to strip me of everything I had. They came after my house, my savings, and my self-respect. They even tried to take my daughter. She then opened the folder and started placing papers on the desk one by one. These are the bank statements that prove Ryan concealed millions of dollars from the government and me while we were married. These are the transcripts from recorded conversations between Ryan and his mother, plotting how to destroy me. And these documents show they manufactured a false child abuse claim against my own brother in an effort to take his child. Catherine Wells appeared visibly shocked. These are very serious accusations. They are not accusations. They are documented, verified facts. And my story is not unique. There are more of us. Other women that Ryan has used and thrown away over the past 20 years. We have decided we will not be quiet any longer. The host then posed the one question on every viewer's mind. If you had the chance to speak to Margaret Mitchell at this moment, what would you tell her? Emily stared straight ahead, her gaze fixed on the camera lens. I would tell her the very thing I needed to hear all those years ago. Your wealth cannot shield you from consequences. Your influence does not make your actions correct. And there will always be women like me who will not be silenced or erased. We keep records, we remember what was done, we put up a fight, and in the end, we prevail. The segment exploded online almost instantly. Before the next day dawned, the video had over 50 million views. The legal repercussions were immediate and severe. The district attorney launched a criminal inquiry. Soon after, Ryan and Margaret faced charges of financial fraud, tax evasion, tampering with witnesses, and conspiracy. A judge set their bail at $5 million apiece. In civil court, Emily, Sarah Bennett, and Jessica came together to file a lawsuit for damages. The Crawford family also pursued their own legal action for the money that had been stolen from their father. More women who had been victimized began to step forward, contributing their own stories to the growing case. In less than 6 months, Mitchell Development was forced to declare bankruptcy. The criminal trial started the next year. Emily was on the stand for 2 days, where she calmly recounted all she had endured. Sarah Bennett took the stand to describe the hush money and the non-disclosure agreement she was pressured to sign. Jessica then gave her testimony, revealing what she had observed as part of Ryan's inner world. The defense team for Ryan used every tactic they could think of. They tried to undermine the women's character. They alleged the evidence was faked. They even suggested their clients were the targets of an organized plot to ruin their reputations. The jury remained completely unconvinced. The court found Ryan Mitchell guilty on 12 charges, sentencing him to 8 years in a federal prison. His mother, Margaret Mitchell, was found guilty on 9 charges and received a sentence of 6 years. All of their possessions were confiscated by the authorities. The luxurious penthouse that Emily once lived in was auctioned off. Their hidden offshore bank accounts were drained to cover penalties and repay their victims. When all the legal battles were over, the entire Mitchell fortune was gone. Emily made sure to be at the sentencing hearing. She was not there to celebrate their downfall, but to simply be seen. She wanted to be a living reminder to Ryan and Margaret that she had endured and ultimately triumphed. As they led Ryan away in handcuffs, his eyes met hers. For just an instant, a look crossed his face. It was not sorrow or shame. It was pure fear. In that moment, he finally grasped the full weight of his actions and the price he would pay. Emily stepped out of the courthouse into the bright spring day and never looked back. 2 years later, you could find Emily on the back deck of her new home, watching her daughter Hope play in the little yard. Her townhouse was simple but cozy, with 3 bedrooms and a small garden, located in a neighborhood filled with young families. She had purchased it using the funds from her civil case, deliberately picking a practical home over a showpiece. A grand penthouse was no longer what she wanted. She wanted nothing to do with the life she had managed to leave behind. Hope was now 2.5 years old, a whirlwind of activity with her mother's dark eyes and a contagious giggle that could light up any space. She was currently running through the lawn after butterflies, her tiny legs working hard to catch the elusive insects. A smile touched Emily's lips as she thought about her own pursuit of seemingly impossible goals. She remembered fighting fights that felt hopeless and clinging to hope when it seemed naive. She knew she had chosen the perfect name for her child. Just then, the back door slid open and Diana emerged with 2 glasses of lemonade. Their Sunday strategy meetings were now a regular thing, but their focus had shifted from just getting by to growing their mission. "We got 3 new clients this week," Diana announced, taking a seat next to Emily. They all came from that magazine story. Also, the foundation gave us the grant we applied for. Emily accepted the lemonade with a thankful nod. "How much did we get?" "It is enough to bring on 2 additional counselors and grow our legal assistant services. We are going to make a difference for so many more women." The nonprofit, Hope's House, was Emily's creation. It offered legal support, career coaching, and short-term shelter for women leaving controlling marriages. It began with just Emily, Diana, and Rosa in a tiny, crowded office. But the news of their work got out. People started donating. Women from across the nation sought their help. Over the course of 2 years, they had assisted more than 500 women in starting over. Rosa now served as the lead counselor, applying her own life lessons to help others on a similar path. Keisha was in charge of the career program, teaching women the skills they needed to be financially self-sufficient. Even Jessica had contributed by establishing a scholarship fund for children who had witnessed domestic abuse. "By the way, Sarah Bennett phoned last week," Diana added. "She and Madison are doing wonderfully." Madison was accepted into a performing arts high school on a full scholarship. A feeling of warmth filled Emily's chest as she nodded. Sarah had made the choice to never tell her daughter who her biological father was, and Madison had never met him. The girl was flourishing, completely free of the Mitchell influence and their fortune. There are some legacies you are better off without. And how is Jessica doing? She is doing well. She and her little boy got into their new apartment last month. She is actually launching a group for women who were unknowingly the other woman in a relationship. Emily could not help but smile at the turn of events. Just 2 years ago, she had despised Jessica Vale more than anyone. Now they were raising children who were half-siblings and working to create something positive from their shared history. It was funny how life could surprise you. At that moment, Hope dashed toward them, holding something tightly in her tiny hand. Mama, look, a flower. Emily accepted the dandelion from her daughter. It was just a common yellow weed, really, but to her, it was absolutely perfect. Thank you, sweetie. It is so beautiful. Hope's face lit up with a huge smile before she turned and raced away in search of more wonderful things. Diana watched her for a moment with a smile. She really does not know what you had to endure to make this life possible for her. Emily gently shook her head. I will explain it all one day, when she is mature enough to grasp it. For now, though, she does not need to carry any of that weight. All she needs to feel is how much she is loved. The two women sat together in a peaceful quiet for a while, just observing, as Hope happily investigated the wonders of the small garden. Do you ever find yourself thinking about him? Diana asked in a low voice. About Ryan. Emily paused to think about it. She had not laid eyes on Ryan since the court proceedings. He was doing his time in a federal prison located in Pennsylvania, while Margaret was at a correctional facility for women in Connecticut. She had not heard from either of them. I do, sometimes, Emily confessed. But the anger is gone now. What I feel most is a sense of sadness. The man had it all: wealth, influence, achievement. Yet he lost it all because of his insatiable need to take from other people. He will be locked up until Hope is 10 years old. He is going to be absent for her entire childhood. All for nothing. Diana agreed with a nod. I wonder about that myself. After all the harm he caused and all the people he destroyed, he ended up with absolutely nothing. Emily's mind drifted back to the woman she was 3 years ago, the woman who had collapsed in the courthouse, certain that her world had ended, the one who regained consciousness in a hospital bed to life-altering news, the one who battled for months simply to stay afloat, to protect her child, and to feel like she had a right to exist. It felt like that person was someone else entirely. But then again, maybe not. Perhaps that version of her was still inside, forming the very bedrock of the new existence she had constructed. You want to know the biggest lesson I learned through all this? Emily said, her eyes on Hope, who was now picking another dandelion. People can take away your house, your savings, and your career. They can even try to steal your self-worth and your optimism. But what they can never take is your true self. The moment you are no longer terrified of having nothing, you discover that you have held the power inside you the whole time. Diana gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Listen to you, sounding like you belong on an inspirational poster. Emily let out a laugh. Oh, be quiet. I am trying to be deep and meaningful. You are being silly, and I absolutely love it, Diana replied. The warm light of the late afternoon sun fell on Emily's face. Over in the garden, Hope had found a ladybug and was completely captivated as it moved across her tiny hand. Diana, ever practical, had already pulled out her phone to tackle the next task on her never-ending to-do list. This was Emily's life now, uncomplicated, rich with purpose, and truly happy. Not perfect. Life was never perfect, but it was good. Emily thought about all the women who would come to Hope's house this year, women who were in the exact same place she had been, frightened, alone, utterly convinced that their lives were over. She would tell them what Rosa had told her all those months ago in the darkness of the shelter. When the devil keeps coming for you, it is because you have got something he wants. Your life is worth fighting for. Your children are worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. And she would tell them one last thing, something she wished with all her heart someone had told her at the very beginning. You are not alone, not anymore. Hope came running back to her, out of breath, her cheeks flushed with pure happiness. Mama, Lily is here, and Uncle Luke is burning the food again. Emily looked up and saw Luke's pickup truck pulling into the driveway. Lily, who was now 10 years old, hopped out before the truck even came to a complete stop and sprinted towards the backyard. "I brought dessert," Luke called out, proudly holding up a cake that was leaning a little to one side. "I made it myself. It only caught on fire twice." The girls crashed into each other with a flurry of hugs and laughter, then immediately ran off to start whatever new adventure they had planned. Luke walked up to the porch, where Diana was sitting, took the glass of lemonade she offered, and settled into a comfortable chair. Emily just watched her family. This strange and wonderful group of people who had been brought together by a crisis and had stayed together by choice. Her brother, her best friend, her daughter. The little community of survivors that had given her a new reason to live. 3 years ago, she had woken up in a hospital room to news that changed her world forever. She had been pregnant, without a home, and utterly alone. She had truly believed her life was over, but she had been so wrong. Her life was actually just beginning. The sun was going down behind the townhouse, brushing the sky with shades of orange and pink. Her daughter, Hope, was laughing at something Lily had just said. Luke was telling the story of his latest cooking disaster, while Diana tried her best not to laugh and spit out her lemonade. Emily Carter took a long, slow breath of the cool evening air and smiled to herself. This was what winning really felt like. It was not about getting revenge. It was not about getting a fortune. It was not about defeating her enemies. It was just this, a sense of peace, a sense of purpose, and the people who loved her. Hope. In the end, that was everything she had ever really needed. Emily Carter's organization, Hope's House, has helped over 500 women rebuild their lives after leaving abusive marriages. Ryan Mitchell is currently serving 8 years in federal prison for fraud and tax evasion. He has never met his daughter. Margaret Mitchell's assets were seized by the government. She now lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in New Jersey, having been released early for good behavior. Jessica Vale and her son live just 3 blocks from Emily. The two women now co-parent their children together and meet for coffee every Thursday. Sarah Bennett and Madison were finally whole again. Their bond fully restored, after Madison learned the entire truth about her biological father. She wanted him out of her life permanently. Hope Mitchell Carter is growing up a happy, healthy little girl, surrounded by a love that is fierce and constant. Her mother is dedicated to keeping her world safe. And that was Emily's journey. A woman who entered a courthouse expecting to sign divorce papers, but left with nothing but a secret baby on the way and enemies closing in on all sides. But she refused to break. She fought back. She found her tribe, and she came out on top. If Emily's story moved you today, I want to ask a favor. Please press that like button. Not for my channel, but for every woman out there fighting a silent war no one else can see. Let her know that she is not fighting it by herself. Please leave a comment down below. I want to know which moment of this story truly affected you. Was it the heartbreaking betrayal by her own mother? That terrifying scene in the hospital when they tried to take her baby? Or the stunning moment Jessica finally told the truth? I make sure to read every single one of your comments, and I truly value what you have to say. Share this story with someone who needs this message today. You can never be sure who is quietly navigating their own personal storm. And if you are not already subscribed, please join our community and click the notification bell. We deliver powerful stories like Emily's every single week. Stories of women who refuse to surrender. Stories that prove to all of us that hope is never truly gone. Thank you so much for listening until the very end. You are the entire reason I do this. I will see you in the next story. This content was carefully researched, developed and manually edited by our team to bring you meaningful stories with real lessons. Every word is crafted with purpose, because your time deserves nothing less.